Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of SuperCoach, mates. Well, we're nearly there. We're nearly at the halfway stage of the season. So I think this is probably quite an important time for a lot of our SuperCoach sides, as we say goodbye to the last of our rookies and hopefully are in a position where we can come out of the buys with a full premium side, which I think is probably realistic for most sides, I would hope. So, as per normal, I am joined by Thomas. How are you going?
They're not too bad. Probably brought down bit back to reality from the Saints loss on the weekend against the Suns. But no, good to be back. I think we're both being pretty crook over the last week and a bit. So wasn't able to record last week, but back to normality, hopefully, for here on in, at least for the near future. Yeah, so far so good from the community side. We're flying, and you'll see that in the next slide. But yeah, my own side's been probably struggling a little bit, it seems, this season. We've been pretty ravaged by injury.
Yeah, I think mine has been a bit the same. So I'm gonna hand it over to Thomas. So we're gonna do what we normally do. So we're just gonna quickly go through Thomas's side and the community side, and then I'm gonna jump in with my own side when the opportunity arises.
Yeah, we'll kick things off with how the comparison went, and I guess you can see the comparison on a week-to-week basis. And yeah, as I said, the community side's flying at the moment, another 2,400, which has put us in great stead. I think the whole reason why we've done pretty well so far is we've missed the early carnage, which has been handy, which has put us just outside the top 1K mark, which is nice, at the 1.6 mark, which is good, and looking for another strong week. And my own side, unfortunately, probably missed out on about 50 or 80 points or something, because I had Cook, and Cook was an accident on the bench. I didn't realise he was on the bench, and then I had Blameries on the bench instead of Carroll. So yeah, probably lost a few points there, but a little bit frustrating. I'm climbed myself personally back from the 50K mark where I started. Probably had the worst start to the season that I've ever had. So chopping it back slowly, and if I can probably end inside the top 5K, that'd be a win. But we'll see how we go, and trying to still be pretty aggressive, I think, on the trade front. And there's a few players I'm targeting this week. But as I said, we'll move on, and I've tried this last episode with comparing direct comparison from each line, and that seemed to work pretty well. So we'll stick with that, and we'll move on to the defenders to start with. We can kind of see the similarities and differences from both sides. Being the top one is my personal team. I'll probably put a thingy there for the future to make reference if you're watching on YouTube. But yeah, the top side's my one, and Whitfield, Sinclair, both the same on both sides. Whitfield was a trade-in for both sides last week, which worked really well. Apparently had a bit of a knock on his Achilles, potentially in training last week, which caused a bit of doubt, but stuck fat and rewarded owners with the 130 plus, which is definitely good from Whitfield. Having been an owner of him in the past, I think the biggest benefit for him playing defenses at the moment is Lockie Ash has pretty much moved to the midfield as an almost permanent midfielder. So it's nice to see Whitfield benefiting from that nicely off the half-back line. Probably could see a spike in Sinclair's score in the upcoming weeks, because Naz is now injured for 3 weeks. So, pretty much, and Wilkie's a test for this weekend, so pretty much every single kick out against Richmond will go to Sinclair. Could be a sneaky VCC option if you want him. And then my side personally, Jordan Clark's been a really frustrating own. As I said, I regrettably chose him before the start of the season. I could have gone with any sub 500K Premo defender, Archie Roberts being one of them, and he's flying about at the moment. And yeah, I don't know the exact reason to why he's scoring so poorly. So usually, coincides with Luke Ryan scoring quite well. But on the flip side, the midfield brigade of Brayshaw and Sarong, like, they're doing not that great either. So frustrating own. Dan Houston, I guess Nathan can talk a bit about him and how the Pies utilising him. Hopefully see a few more consistent scores from him. I guess you just got to hold him a little bit throughout these next couple of weeks. I don't see why you'd trade him now. Seems like the Pies are experimenting a little bit with positional sort of stuff. And then Lindsay and Carroll and Kitty Coleman in the SCMates team. But yeah, The rookies, I can't complain too much. I've got Todd Marshall back there now as well, which will provide some coverage. I believe he's playing against the Suns on Friday night, so that'd be good for owners to get a bit more cash. Carroll could do quite nicely against Richmond, I would suggest. And Lindsay, I know his break even's around that 80 mark, and he's pushing that 400k price. So if you wanted to trade him now, great. That wouldn't be a problem, but I'd suggest that he's one of your strongest scoring rookies on field, getting 70 to 80 each week. So even if he doesn't hit his 80 break even, he's probably not going to go that much down in cash. But what are your thoughts, Nathan, on obviously Houston has been one as a pie supporter, but Josh Dacos seems to be spending a bit more time in the midfield at the moment. Do you reckon that'll increase his scoring a little bit, or do you reckon that kind of goes the other way for him?
Well, since we're talking about Houston, I do just want to quickly pump up my own tires here, because we didn't record last week. If anyone had have taken the advice I gave you 2 weeks ago, and chucked the vice captaincy on Houston against Hawthorn, you would have been fantastically pleased with his 135. So, just got to pump up the tires when you can. But yes, no, I think I completely agree. I think you just have to hold Houston. I'm sure you've got much bigger issues. Yes, the scoring is very flaky, but I feel like this might be another week where you can chuck the vice captaincy on him, because of the way that Sydney actually play. I think he's going to really trouble Collingwood. This could be a blowout. We saw what Geelong did to Collingwood on Saturday night. So Geelong, just for some context here, I'll just quickly get it up. So Geelong gained 700 meters by hand on Saturday night, which was the most that Collingwood have basically had against them, since the Craig McRae era. And then as a result of that, Geelong were able to score 61% of the time they went inside their forward 50. So I think Sydney are probably better than this at Geelong. So I am quite fearful about Friday night. And because I'm quite fearful of Friday night, I think that's a good sign for the Houston that I think he's probably going to score well. Josh Dacos, look, I think if Oscar Steen wasn't in that midfield, I don't know how any of those midfielders would be scoring, because Darcy Cameron just has not had the year, at Collingwood that he has previously. So, yeah, I think, unfortunately for both, you're just going to have to hold them. But, yeah, Collingwood, they definitely are, I think, experimenting a bit with, how they're going to, I guess, attack the second half of the year. I saw on Saturday night, obviously being at the ground, that there were a few tactical surprises that I thought were very un-Craig McRae-like, by essentially sending Ned Long to play a defensive forward role on Tom Stewart, which may have worked, may not have worked. And then Quainer to Ollie Dempsey, which I thought was interesting as well. So yeah, I think this is just a challenge though of playing Geelong, is that because I've been saying this now for a couple of years, that Ollie Dempsey is essentially a full forward that's playing on the wing. So you get that matchup wrong and you bleed. Well, that's basically what happened to Collingwood on Saturday night. So I'm a bit concerned about the Collingwood ones. As I said, I think Sinclair now becomes very popular just because of that Nasai injury. Whitfield, I can't argue with Whitfield. The Giants are the best ball movement side in the AFL this year. So just for context here, the Giants. Just let me get it quickly up. Here we go. Here we go. So the Giants are transitioning the ball from D50 to their forward 50, just under 30% of the time, and Whitfield has been a major part of that. So, I think his scoring is going to keep going up. I guess the only caveat on that is that if sides do shut down that Giants, you know, the tsunami out of the back half, I just don't know how they're gonna, you know, how they're gonna score. So for context, you're meant to score about 4 times from your D50, and the Giants scored 10 times against Essendon. So I guess that's my only concern with the Whitfield pick is that, yeah, you know, if sides can strangle the Giants' ball movement, what does that do for his scoring? But you can't argue with scoring there. And then, yeah, I think Lindsay, I think there's much bigger issues there. And Kadeem Coleman, I think there's probably bigger issues too than Kadeem Coleman. So yeah, I think my back line is pretty much about in the same spot. Where I think the rookies down there are performing quite well. So I'm in no rush to move them on. I'm guessing you're the same, Thomas, with your defensive rookies.
Pretty much. I think. Oh, I mean, at the moment, I mean, my personal team, I haven't quite figured out the trades yet. But Jack Carroll probably in the chopping block. He's got a break even of a bit close to 80. I think he's made his money. I don't see him spiking too much. And probably for me, Kadeem Coleman, I think goes for me this week. I mean, I put it up on a poll on X today, and that included Kadeem Coleman. I think he's the one that out of him and Lindsay, I probably prefer to just hold on to Lindsay a little bit more, just because of the consistency in scoring. Kadeem Coleman, I think it was a stepping stone to get an EBA premium, and Archie Roberts is one that I'm looking at quite closely. He's just got a super, super juicy role, I think, at SuperCoach. Landing, you know, he can get 150s out of his ass. It was frustrating because I had him at 480k at the start of the year in my own personal side for much of that preseason. I know Dane Zorko is another one that people are looking at this week as a potential cheap option. He's sub 500k. Also as part of the poll for the SCMates community side, had Nick Blakey as well, who seems to benefit from this kind of ping-ponging handball style that has really benefited the Swans this year. So, yeah, a few options, that's for sure. But I'd say Whitfield and Sinclair in particular are probably close to D1, D2 at the moment, bar Roberts. So, yeah, that's the defensive line so far, and I think a lot of people are in the same boat with a lot of those Uber premiums. And then moving to the midfield, this is where it gets a little bit different between both sides. I mean, my personal side on the top there is probably where it laps a little bit this year with injuries and however much that's been going on. For me, and for me, probably Willem Dersma comes out of this side now as he's made his money, which has been great. I probably picked him up 1 week too late. I picked him up at 270. Happy he got to 400k, which is what I wanted. He's probably slowed down a little bit as per the West Coast rookies. Milan Murdoch, I think, might get forward DPP, so you could keep him arguably for the rest of the year as an F6 if you want to go down that route, or an even F7 with how well he's scoring. Butters, Bonds, Dacos. Obviously, Dacos got tagged out of it by O'Shea Mullen. Interesting to see and hear what your thoughts are on who Geelong decided to tag on this week, because I know McCluggage is a very cheap option, and every season it seems to go on like a nil, but I know they recently pivoted to McCluggage in the final series, and that worked wonders for him. Walsh is just, frustrating as anything. Hopefully, now that Voss is gone, maybe that opens the shackles up a little bit to Walsh to see his best that we've seen from him. I guess the benefit from Walsh is he's just really, really consistent from what I've seen from him, and that reflects in his scoring. Hasn't gone under 90, but yeah, for his player of his ilk, you want to pushing that 120, 110 more consistently. Lockie Neal was my trade in the week before as well, so he's been pretty impressive. Hopefully he doesn't cop the tag this week and gets a somewhat decent score. I'm fully expecting him to be tagged, though, at some point. And yeah, in the SCMates team, this is where I guess the heavy scoring comes into play, and the reason why probably we've done well as a community so far, from stacking that midfield up to F6 is, 6 absolute keepers. And Heaney was happy that even though I paid up from his return the favour, averaging 126 there, Max Holmes should get defensive eligibility, which is nice considering he has had put some average scores in, but is still a very, very good pick in the midfield. Merritt's probably one that I guess I picked him up based off the votes, but he's been a little bit underwhelming. I mean, he's still going to score quite nicely anyway, and he's still someone that, always hits that 115 average. Jagger Smith was one that I was really contemplating getting rid of. But I think with him now scoring that 100, probably can hold a little bit longer. And who knows, maybe he gets more CBA rotations with Josh Frazier in the helm. And really liked how he played last week as well to get that ton. So hopefully he can maintain that for a bit longer and get a good on-field rookie position. Paddy Rechko as well in both teams. He's actually looks really impressive. I watched pretty much all of that game on Sunday, that Richmond Crows game, and playing off a wing just gets a lot of that ball, works really, really hard both ways and gets rewarded. And I think that's where we're going to see the good scores from Richmond from a rookie perspective, because you look at Cumming and Burton. Burton looked good in for the first 20 minutes and then died off completely, but he's a 99 baseman rookie, not expecting much. But yeah, the owners from Cumming did not live up to that expectation. I think he looked really lost against Adelaide, and that was my concern. Probably getting, owners getting sucked in against that West Coast score, which he looked really good. Granted, he scored 80 the week before as well. But yeah, had about 60% game time, could potentially be dropped. Just did look completely lost in that midfield against a stronger Adelaide side. But what are your thoughts, Nathan? How is your midfield structuring up, and who are your trade-ins potentially if people are looking for midfield spots? Because as we've discussed it just then, McCluggage is pretty much right for the picking. There could be some tag worry, but also Finn Callaghan as well from the Giants, who's priced accordingly and could be a very good pickup, considering, because of all these injuries, say, happened to Naz and whatever, and English as well. And in the previous weeks, you're probably looking for some cheapies to get you over the line to finish your team.
Yeah, so just had a quick look here. So Murdoch's definitely getting forward eligibility. He's currently at 81% time in the forward third of the ground. So unless he literally plays 100% as a midfielder across the next 2 weeks, he's basically getting a forward regardless. The Max Holmes one, I think, is. I think unfortunately this is going to go. He's currently at 34%. For defensive time, the threshold's 35%. So he's currently just meeting that. But depending on how the next 2 games look, will determine that DPP eligibility for Holmes. But I think if Holmes does end up becoming defensive eligible, well, then I think you're going to have him, because he's clearly the best defender scoring wise, if he does become eligible for that. So my own midfield, so I'll just quickly go on the other tab here. So my own midfield, so you guys obviously can't see my screen, so I'll just say that now. So Zach Butters, Bontempelli, obviously, been flying. Merritt has been, but had a bit of a down week. Nick, I fully expected Nick to get tagged by Oisin Mullen, so I don't think that was any big surprise. Caleb Sarong, I'm glad had 118, but I think he's just about on my never again list. Darcy Parish, he's still scoring all right. He's probably a rung below, those top midfielders. I've still got Tanner Bruin. He's still just scoring along quite nicely there. So I guess if you want, I've got 7 non-rookie midfielders on the field in my midfield, which I think is sort of fantastic. And then I've also got Murdoch and Patrick Rechko and Angry Anderson and Sam Cumming, who came into the side last week. So, as I said, I think my midfield is coming along quite nicely. Now, with regards to the Oisin Mullen tag, I would be very surprised if that is not straight to Hugh McCluggage tomorrow night. They did it in the qualifying final. It worked wonders. And they did it for a half in the grand final, and I would say it worked until probably midway through the third quarter, and then once Brisbane started getting on top, it just, it was basically an avalanche of things. So I have no doubt that Mullen will go straight to McCluggage. If Neil does get tagged, it will be by Mark O'Connor, but I suspect that he's probably going to have Cam Rayner, probably a better matchup for him. So Yeah, I think Mullen will go to McCluggage, which is probably frustrating because I think McCluggage's break even this week is in the 70s. 77. So I think this would be probably a good week to pick up McCluggage, but I definitely think that Mullen's going to go straight to him. So it's just a question of, um, whether or not you're happy to bring him in, knowing that he's probably going to get tagged. So I think personally, I'd probably wait a week and just let him get through this, this Mullen hurdle, and then you can probably get him in after that, because I think after that Brisbane's draw sort of does open up a bit. So they've got the Giants, and then they've got Fremantle in Brisbane, and then they've got the Suns in the Q Clash, Richmond in Tassie, and then they've got their bye. So, yeah, I mean, you might even be able to hold out until Brisbane's bye if you decide not to get him this week. But yeah, I think, unfortunately, for those of you who are getting McCluggage, it's probably going to be a reverse trade this week.
Yeah, I definitely hold out this week. I think even you can fight like a roll of dice, and he could go to Neil, and we all know how Neil does with tags. He kind of disappears. So, but I think with his break even not being 5 or whatever stupidly low, you could probably hold out this week regardless. And if he does turn up, he's not going to go increasingly much, and you'd pay 500k from in a heartbeat with McCluggage's ilk. So yeah, probably I'd say if you're looking for a midfielder, Finn Callahan's the one. Playing West Coast could go quite large, and he's pretty consistent, Callahan, with his running ability. Similar ilk to McCluggage, I think he can probably avoid having both in there. They seem very similar scorers. So, yeah, I think if you want one this week with regards to pricing, I'd definitely say McCluggage is it. And sorry, not McCluggage. Callahan is it, and he's someone that I'm considering as well in my side as well to try and bat deep a little bit and get another premium on field. But moving on to the rucks, this is where it gets quite interesting because one side is Jackson and one side Dustin, and that's probably what's costing me at the moment. I mean, Brody Grundy's been superb for me, but Jackson's, dominated crazily with scoring. He just seems, regardless if Cox plays in there or not, he just goes nuts and has these quarters where he goes berserk. Grundy was very frustrating because I'd had head-to-head matchup with a mate of mine who had Jackson and I didn't, and Grundy didn't decide to go bananas. He's been really consistent, but against your mob Nathan on Friday night, I think Grundy could see potentially a double ton coming if he's playing against Oscar Steen and no Darcy Cameron. Yeah, Jackson, I think in an ideal world, you could probably run 2 rucks, either a Sherry, Gorn, Grundy combo, and then have Jackson there as a flex or whatever. And that could be really, really damaging come late in the season. It's a lot of money to pay, obviously, for 3 rucks going past 600k. Gorn's the one that obviously since the last recording, he's been probably, he's still scoring pretty well, but with Max Heath in the side, there is some concern that there potentially might be a niggle with Gorn suffering at the moment. Look, he scored 134 against the Eagles on the weekend, and that score we can't complain with at all. But what are your thoughts? Have you seen much of Gorn play in games, and what is your concern at the moment, I guess, because the biggest concern people said when he came on the field against West Coast was lining up full forward and Heath was at ruck. Do you reckon there is something going on with Gorn behind the scenes we don't know of, or do you reckon it's genuinely them trying to play 2 rucks at the moment?
I just personally think they're looking at life after Max, to be perfectly honest. He's in his mid-30s now, so, I think they're going to need him. It's amazing that Melbourne are probably, a strong finals chance here, and I think if they are to make it, I think they're going to need Max fit and firing. So I have no doubt that this is just, a management thing for Max just to get him out of the ruck a little bit. But I'm going to pump up my own tires again here. I've done this twice now this episode, but I did flag this preseason that I thought Luke Jackson would be the number 1 ruckman by the end of the year. Well, not only is he currently the number 1 ruckman, he's actually the number 1 scorer in SuperCoach so far across the season. So, admittedly, he's only 13 points clear of Brody Grundy, and then he's 22 points clear of Max Gawn. but he's still the highest scoring player. So, I guess you've got to pump up your own tires when you can. But yes, no, I think I've been saying this now. I think we said this last episode too, that I think if you can get the three of them, Gawn, Grundy, and Jackson in your side, I think that's probably just about the best possible, flex play you can have. I think Matt Gawn is an interesting one. So he obviously, if we have a look across the season so far, he has played 12% of his time as a forward. So obviously you need to get to 35% to be eligible. So, I'm not saying that he's going to get there, but gee, if he gets to 35% by not the one coming up in a couple of weeks, but the one in about round 17, if he's at that 35% forward time, look out, because he will be the most popular flex player in history. That'll be the easiest flex player. Just bring him in, even as a forward. Just bring him in and just watch him go bananas. Because that will literally be the biggest error if you don't have Max Gawn in your side as a forward. When there literally are no forwards at all. So I'm actually contemplating this week. So I currently have actually traded out the Conning this week, and I've actually gone with Max Gawn in my side. So I've just got enough for it. It leaves me very thin, but it probably gets rid of the one remaining dead player in the side that I'm not particularly happy with. So I'm just gonna see if I can follow through with that, because the only problem is that there's no real good rookies this week that are both bringing in. There were last week, but not this week. So I guess we'll have to wait and see on that. But yeah, at this stage, I have brought in Max Gawn this week because I think that break even is a bit high. It's the 133. But yeah, I think, to be honest with you, I think a 50% max to be better than 100% decoding. Although in saying that, normally when you trade someone out, a la Darcy Parish, for those who moved him on, they normally go out and score 150 and just absolutely wreck your mood for the rest of the weekend, knowing that, you had this player and you traded them out and then they've gone bananas. So I'm probably expecting that with Tom DeConning, but I think in the long run, Gawn will be better.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I don't think TDK is going to score huge anytime soon with his ruck split with Marshall. I think that's pretty much nailed on the head, given the last couple of weeks. He pretty much needs 3-4 goals to score like he did against West Coast. But yeah, probably a heads up as well. If you've got McAndrew in R2 or flex, there could be potential that he doesn't play or gets managed or rested against North, because Sherry's obviously a big body. They've got Riley O'Brien there that they're playing. I mean, they're playing McAndrew ahead of Rob, purely based on form. It's not an injury thing like Rob's fit. So could be potentially that Rob plays and that could be concerned for McAndrew owners. I think it could be a good time to trade him out. He's done really well for us and he's, not in people's final sides. That's for sure. But moving on to the forward line, this is where it gets very, very dicey. Because bar Petrarca and Sheasel and Pickett put up a stinker, and that probably what cost me a good score on the weekend. Him really not scoring well at all. Makes for hard rating for that forward line, makes it real dicey because Rankin looks like the one that out of him and Rochelle. It was frustrating because I picked Rochelle ahead of Rankin. Getting sucked into that early 127 odd and that early season form and hasn't really worked out for me. But yeah, obviously my side bat's pretty deep in the forward line and that probably has impacted me a little bit, just not being able to get those forwards exactly correct. I mean, Rochelle probably was the only one that has backfired a little bit, like Pickett. That was his first bad score for the season. Murphy Reid just keeps chugging along there. I guess he's one that probably ends up being an F6 in the SCMates side. Braden Cook looks really, really impressive off that half back line, pushing up to the wing. He's got elite foot skills. I think won him the showdown last week. So, it pretty much sums him up as a footballer. I think he's going to be a good F6 if you're really strapped for cash. Philippou, from a Saints Kilda's perspective, look, I think he's maxed out in cash gen. I think with him, he's always going to be, at least for the next year or so, that player who's going to score your 50s and 60s and spike a few times, but he's never going to be consistent 80 to 90 player just with the way he plays and the injury concerns he may have. Artie Jones is actually not a bad rookie to have now when we got him in a couple of weeks ago as a good forward coverage, considering we got Scary there. As a very cheap option, I think early days we had him, I think, starting, and then it was essentially a loophole for us. So, obviously my side probably has a little bit more money on the field. We got Lombard in there that's still chugging along nicely. I guess with him getting those 50s and 60s, you can't complain at all from my side's perspective. But yeah, the forward line looks really grim. I think a lot of people are thinking what rookies to bring, and I guess the ones that are coming up at the moment, Darragh Joyce has been dropped. The team's obviously got released about half an hour ago, and he's not playing for Brizzy tomorrow night, so there's a rookie gone. What are your thoughts on Liam Henry, Nath? I'll obviously keep my bias aside for 2 minutes whilst you talk about the forward line, but Liam Henry, 160k rookie, scored about 88 2 weeks ago, scored another, backed up with 56. What are your thoughts of bringing him in about 160k? Because, yeah, if you're looking for a rookie, there's not many options at all.
Well, I think this is the only rookie worth bringing in. This week is Liam Henry. I don't really like the role, but I think he does have a bit of X factor. I think he can sort of get up the ground a bit more. And we do know that the way Ross Lyon plays, coaches at St Kilda, is he does like getting those forwards really high up the ground and then, trying to make it a running race, towards goals. So that's obviously ideal for Henry. My forward line actually isn't too bad either. So obviously I've got Sheasel. I think I know it's frustrating, but I think you need to trade Christian Petrarca in, back in if you didn't, if you traded him out, because right now, he's currently the number 1 rated player in the league so far this year, which is a testament to how well he's actually gone at the Sun. So. As frustrating as it is, I think you're just going to have to bite the bullet and get him back in, because I can't see him scoring too much. Like his break even this week's 113 against the Power. He's every chance of getting that. Although the Power are the best side at denying ball movement. So perhaps that might play down that a little bit. But yeah, I don't think Petrarca, I think that'll be probably a low for Petrarca. Hopefully for the year, given that he's rating. And then I've got Shea Bolton. He's still plodding along. Flanders obviously had his best game for the year. DeGoey has really spiked the past couple of weeks, which has been great. It is good seeing him, he's, getting back to himself. Harry Sharp probably had his quietest game for a few weeks. And then I've got Todd Marshall and Edwards, and then obviously my flex is Lombard, who I agree is just chugging along very nicely. So, yeah, I don't think my side is in too bad a position. I think there's just been a couple of, errors with the loopholing and, perhaps just a few trades that haven't quite gone my way. But, I'm still plodding along, so can't complain.
Yeah, I think before we wrap it up as well, I think one rookie to look out for as well is Lockie Smith from the Dogs as a ruck option, because English is minimum 2-week injury, which means Smith will probably take the bulk of that ruck work at 119k. Probably one if you have Edwards in the ruck, which is my side has him at the moment, like my personal side. So he's one I'm actually pretty much bringing in to facilitate those trades. This week, I'm probably going to bring in either stick with 2 trades and probably bring in Smith and Roberts, or if I want to boost out of my way and be aggressive and use my final boost, potentially go cheap and go Callahan and Zorko as kind of 2 premium options or 2 cheap premium options that I think can match it for the rest of the season. But that's where I'm looking at. for round 10. And before we just wrap it up, the vice captaincy and captaincy options, there's probably a few to choose from. I wouldn't pick anything from the Brisbane Lions Geelong game. I don't think so. Sydney Collingwood, if you've got Grundy, chuck the VC on. I think that's an automatic one. If you don't have Grundy, I think the frustrating thing is Butters plays on the same night, which would have made a good VCC combo alongside Grundy for myself. But Butters, went 191 the last time they played the Suns, and the Suns don't tag at all. So they let Flanders run around and get 30-odd disposals and 120. So Butters could go big there. I know it's a slippery deck in Darwin, so it could be, a bit scrappy affair, and I could see Butters thriving in that. Adelaide North, probably, I would say, I'd avoid Rankin if you want to go risky. He could get the Finn O'Sullivan treatment, but Jordan Dawson is one that has found a new roll-off halfback watching that Richmond game, basically transitioning into the midfield, working really well for his scoring. And then, D's Hawks, you can always chuck the C on Gawn, I guess. Even with that kind of forward split, I can see him still scoring well. I mean, Carlton Bulldogs, who knows what's going to happen in that game now that they've sacked Voss. Do you see the Blues bouncing back strongly? But Bontempelli looks really good for a VC or a C, even with that, knee concern or whatever he's got. Eston Freo, probably, if you want to chuck on a Roberts, be brave. Who knows? He could get another 150 there on the G. Richmond St Kilda, I think Sinclair's the obvious pick. Flanders, if you want to go bold, realistically, I don't think that's a smart move, but Sinclair could get maybe 140, 150 if you're looking for a big score. And then finishing out around that Sunday, 6:15, West Coast and the Giants. Yeah, Callahan, Oliver, those mids look really good. Whitfield as well could be a decent option there to round out the week. But yeah, a lot of good VCNC options, that's for sure, this week. But other than that, hopefully...
how could you forget the number one scoring player? How could you forget Luke Jackson?
Oh, yeah, against... well, to be fair, every ruck that they play, every team that the Dons come up against, they seem to nullify the ruck a little bit. But yeah...
Jackson's a different... straight on Luke Jackson for me this week.
Yeah,
just
Jackson, put the C on.
Just lock and loaded on Jackson this week. He's not going under 110. If he goes under 100 this week, I will, think about what to do. But he just lock it on Jackson. If you go with Grundy, or I think Heaney's a good shout as well. I don't think Collingwood have a matchup for Heaney. I don't think Collingwood have a matchup for Warner either. So I think they can really get off the chain. So I'd be doing Grundy into Jackson. I think that's what I would do if I had Grundy. Obviously, I don't. So I think I'm going to do Butters into Jackson.
Yeah, that's probably where I'd go as well. But other than that, hopefully your trades stack up this week, and we'll catch you on the flip side of round 9 round 10, for our review.